The transport ship did not land gently. It dropped like something unwanted, hitting the great dust of Drayska, for with a thud that shook every passenger inside. Daniel Reyes grabbed his small bag and waited for the doors to open. Through the scratched window, he saw nothing but gray. Gray ground, gray sky, gray buildings half buried in gray dust. Welcome to punishment, he thought. 3 months ago, Daniel had argued with collective officials about terraforming regulations. He had data showing that their methods were killing colony worlds faster than they could mine them. The officials did not want data. They wanted silence. So they sent him here to a mining colony where nothing lived and nobody cared. The doors opened. Dust blew inside. Daniel covered his mouth and stepped out. That a Pelori worker waited to guide new arrivals. The creature had 6 thin limbs and a body like a gray insect. Its skin looked dry and cracked. Its eyes were dull. Follow, the Pelori said. Its translator box made the word flat and tired. Daniel followed through tunnels carved into rock. The air was stale and recycled too many times. Workers passed them in the narrow corridors. Different species, different shapes, all wearing the same exhausted expression. Nobody spoke. Nobody looked up. The Pelori stopped at a small room with 2 sleeping platforms and nothing else. Your quarters. Your work assignment comes tomorrow. The creature turned to leave. Daniel called out, "What is your name?" The Pelori paused. It seemed confused by the question. "Sif," it said finally. Then it walked away. Daniel entered his quarters and sat on the hard platform. He opened his bag and checked his most important possession. A mango seed wrapped in damp cloth. Still good. Still viable. Collective Law 742 allowed colonists to bring 1 personal organic item under 50 grams. Most people brought food treats or medicine. Daniel brought hope wrapped in wet fabric. He had grown up on Earth, in a small town surrounded by mango orchards. His grandmother had taught him that 1 seed could become a tree, and 1 tree could feed a family for generations. The collective had forgotten this simple truth. They saw planets as things to use and throw away. Daniel saw them as gardens waiting to happen. Sif returned that evening. The Pelori seemed surprised to find Daniel still awake, sitting on the floor and mixing gray dust with something from his food ration. "What are you doing?" Sif asked, making soil. Daniel said. Sif made a clicking sound that might have been laughter. "Nothing grows on Drayska 4. The ground is dead. Water is rationed. You waste your time." Daniel smiled and kept mixing, maybe. "But I have nothing else to do." Over the following weeks, Daniel learned the rhythm of the colony. Wake up. Eat tasteless food paste. Work in the processing plants for 12 hours. Return to quarters. Sleep. Repeat. The workers moved like machines because the collective treated them like machines, but Daniel watched and planned. He noticed where moisture collected on cold pipes. He found discarded equipment casings that could hold soil. He saved portions of his food rations to add nutrients to his dust mixture. Sif watched all of this with growing confusion. "Why do you try?" the Pelori asked one night. "The collective does not care if we live or die. They only care about the minerals we dig from the ground." Daniel pressed his mango seed into the soil he had prepared. He added a few drops of water he had collected from a leaking pipe. "I do not do this for the collective," he said. "I do this because living things want to live. Even here, even in the dark." Sif was quiet for a long moment. "I do not remember living," the Pelori said softly. "I only remember working." Daniel looked at his new friend. Sif had been born on this colony. He had never seen a tree, never felt rain, never tasted fresh food. His entire existence had been gray dust and recycled air. "Then I will show you," Daniel said. "Give me time." Sif clicked again, but this time it sounded sad instead of amused. "Time is all we have here, human. Time and dust." Daniel placed his container near the small heating vent in their quarters. The warmth would help. The moisture he had added would need to last. Everything was uncertain. Everything was a risk, but somewhere in that gray dust, wrapped in damp cloth and desperate hope, a seed waited. It had traveled across the galaxy in a human small bag. It carried inside it the memory of sunlight and rain and green leaves reaching toward the sky. Daniel touched the soil gently. "Grow," he whispered. Please grow. Sif turned away and pretended not to hear. But that night, for the first time in years, the Pelori dreamed of something other than work. He dreamed of green. Neither of them knew what that small seed would become. Neither of them imagined that it would change everything. But seeds do not need permission to grow. They only need someone willing to plant them. And Daniel Reyes was very, very willing. Sif woke Daniel by shaking him so hard that the human nearly fell from his sleeping platform. The Pelori's 6 limbs were trembling. His dull eyes had become wide and strange. Look, Sif said. His voice cracked through the translator. Look at it. Daniel sat up, confused and half asleep. 3 months had passed since he planted the seed. He had watered it carefully, drop by drop. He had adjusted its position near the heating vent. He had talked to it sometimes, feeling foolish, but unable to stop. He had almost given up hope. But now Sif was pointing at the container with one shaking limb. Daniel looked. A tiny green shoot rose from the gray dust. It was barely 2 centimeters tall. 2 small leaves had opened, reaching toward the dim light of their quarters. Daniel stopped breathing. It grew. He whispered. Sif moved closer to the plant and crouched down. The Pelori stared at the green shoot like it was the most precious thing in the universe. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. I have never seen this color, Sif said quietly. Not in real life. Only in old pictures. It is called green, Daniel said. Green. Sif repeated the word slowly. The translator made it sound almost holy. Green. The Pelori reached out one trembling limb and touched the tiny leaf. His cracked gray skin against the bright new growth. Old and tired against young and alive. It is soft, Sif said. And warm. Daniel watched his friend experience something that humans took for granted. The simple miracle of a plant growing. The quiet magic of life continuing despite everything. Sif did not go to his work shift that day. He sat beside the plant for hours, watching it as if it might disappear. Daniel went to work alone and said nothing to anyone. But secrets do not last long in small places. Within a week, workers were whispering about the human who grew something green. They came to Daniel's quarters in small groups, nervous and curious. A Mole-3 named Jen was the first to ask permission to see. Jen was a being of living stone, tall and heavy, with a face that never showed emotion. But when she saw the small plant, she lowered herself to the floor and sat beside it for a very long time. "My homeworld had forests once," Jen said. Her voice was like rocks grinding together. The collective took them all. I was young. I remember the smell of growing things. Daniel sat beside her. What happened to your world? Jen was silent for a moment. They mined until nothing was left. Then they moved us here. We are tools to them, not living beings. Other workers came. A group of small Finari, creatures like furry lizards who worked in the deepest tunnels. A pair of Vastok, tall and thin beings with skin like blue leather. Each of them had lost something. A homeworld, a family, a reason to hope. The plant gave them something back, but not everyone was pleased. Administrator Pell found Daniel in the processing plant one day. Pell was a collective official, a species called Ordani, with gray skin and 4 eyes that missed nothing. She pulled Daniel aside with cold efficiency. I have heard about your growing project, Pell said. Daniel kept his face calm. It is legal. Law 742 allows one personal organic item. I brought a seed. Pell's 4 eyes narrowed. The seed is legal. But water theft is not. I know you're collecting moisture from the pipes. I know you are saving food rations to feed your plant. Daniel said nothing. Pell leaned closer. I am watching you. Human. One violation, and you'll be sent to the deep mines. No one returns from there. She walked away. Daniel returned to work. That night, he told Sif what had happened. You should stop, Sif said. The plant is wonderful, but your life is more important. Daniel looked at the green shoot. Now 5 centimeters tall. No, he said. I will not stop, but I will be more careful. And he was. He found new ways to collect water that Pell could not track. He taught other workers how to do the same. He showed them how to process waste into nutrients. He explained how to build growing containers from discarded equipment. Within 2 months, 6 more seeds appeared. Workers had been hiding them for years, never believing they could grow. A Fenari brought a seed from her homeworld, extinct now for centuries. A Vastok contributed seeds passed down through his family for generations. Daniel taught them all. The green shoot became a small plant with real branches. New containers held new seedlings in hidden corners of the facility. Something was changing on Dreyska, for that something quiet, something powerful, something alive. And Administrator Pell watched it all with her four cold eyes, waiting for the human to make a mistake. She did not understand what she was seeing. She did not know that hope, like seeds, can spread faster than anyone expects. Daniel knew. He had seen it before, on Earth, in his grandmother's orchard. One tree becomes many. One seed becomes a forest that he just needed time. The lower maintenance tunnels had been abandoned for decades. Nobody went there. The lights were broken. The air was stale. The collective had forgotten they existed. That made them perfect. 1 year after Daniel planted his first seed, the forgotten tunnels had become something impossible. Hundreds of plants grew in chambers carved from rock. Vines climbed the walls. Vegetables ripened in containers made from scrap metal. The air was different down here. Cleaner. Veta. Alive. Daniel walked through the garden with Sif beside him. The Pelori had changed over the past year. His gray skin had grown less cracked. His eyes were brighter. He moved with energy instead of exhaustion. The irrigation system is working well, Sif said. We collected enough water this week to expand the eastern chamber, Daniel nodded. Workers had built the irrigation system together, using recycled water and condensation from the cooling pipes above. It was simple technology. Earth had used similar methods thousands of years ago. But here, on a dead world, it seemed like magic. They passed a group of Fenari planting seeds in fresh soil. The small creatures worked carefully, their tiny hands gentle with each seedling. A Molthari named Jin supervised them, her stone body somehow softer when she stood among the green. The Vastok contribution is ready, Jin said as Daniel approached. They found a way to extract minerals from the mine waste. It makes the soil richer. Each species brought something different. The Pelori understood water systems. The Molthari could work in conditions too harsh for others. The Fenari were skilled at delicate tasks. The Vastok knew chemistry. Together, they created techniques that none of them could have invented alone. Daniel had stopped calling himself the teacher. He was just another gardener now. They gathered that evening in the central chamber, where Daniel's original mango tree stood tall. It was not yet ready to bear fruit, but its branches spread wide, and its leaves rustled in the air, circulated by old ventilation fans. Workers from 7 different species sat together, sharing a meal of fresh vegetables grown in the tunnels. A year ago, they had eaten nothing but processed paste. Now they ate real food that they had grown with their own hands that a Pelori child ran past, chasing a Fenari who had become her friend. The child had been born on Dreyska 4. She had never known the gray exhaustion of her parents' generation. She knew only the garden. Daniel watched her and felt something he had almost forgotten. Peace, but peace never lasts. Administrator Pell appeared at the entrance of the central chamber. Her 4 eyes scanned the impossible scene. Workers of multiple species, fresh food, living plants, children playing. Everything the collective said could not happen on a mining colony. What is this? Pell asked. Her voice was quiet, but it cut through all other sound. The workers froze. The children stopped playing. Everyone looked at Daniel. He stood slowly and faced Pell. It is a garden, he said simply. We grew it together. Pell walked forward. Her eyes moved across the plants, the irrigation channels, the people sitting together. Her expression was impossible to read. This violates 17 collective regulations, she said. Unauthorized resource use, unauthorized construction, unauthorized worker organization. Daniel did not argue. There was no point that I must report this, Pell continued. Collective command will send enforcement officers. They will destroy everything and punish everyone involved. She pulled out her communication device. Her finger moved toward the transmission button, and then the Pelori child walked up to her. The child was small, barely reaching Pell's waist. She held something in her tiny hands. A flower, grown from seeds that a Fenari had saved for 3 generations. The child offered the flower to Pell. "I could see is pretty," the child said. Her translator made the words simple and pure. "I grew it myself. Do you want it?" Pell looked down at the child. The flower. The small hands offering something precious. The chamber was completely silent. Pell's finger hovered over the transmission button. Seconds passed like hours. Then, slowly, she lowered the device. She took the flower. "What is your name?" Pell asked the child. "My name is Dara," the child said happily. "The human taught my father how to grow things. Now my father teaches me." Pell looked at Daniel. Something had changed in her 4 eyes. Something had cracked in the coldness she wore like armor point 1 week. She said quietly, "You have 1 week to reduce this to something I can ignore." She turned and walked away, still holding the flower. Daniel let out a breath he did not know he was holding. "She will be back," Sif said. "I know," Daniel replied. "What do we do?" Daniel looked around the garden. The plants, the people, the children, all of it built from one seed and countless hours of work. "That we do not reduce anything," he said. "We hide it better. And we keep growing because stopping was not an option. Not anymore." The garden had become more than plants. It had become proof that life could exist anywhere if people chose to make it so. And the people of Drayska had made their choice. 2 years had passed since Daniel arrived on Drayska 4. The underground garden had grown beyond anything he imagined. But it faced a problem that threatened everything. Water. The condensation collectors worked well, but they could not keep up with the garden's needs. Every week, the plants grew thicker. Every month, new chambers opened. The stolen drops and recycled moisture were not enough anymore. "That we are at the limit," Sif said one evening. They stood in the main chamber, surrounded by plants that looked slightly dry despite their best efforts. "If we do not find more water, the outer gardens will die." Daniel had known this day would come. He had been planning for it. "There's water below us," he said, "deep underground. The colony sensors detected it years ago." Sif's eyes widened. "The aquifer? That water belongs to the collective. Taking it is not just breaking regulations. It is theft of collective property." Daniel nodded slowly. "I know. But without it, everything we built will die." Administrator Pell found them later that night. She had become a strange ally over the past year. She falsified inspection reports. She redirected small resource allocations. She never spoke about the flower the child had given her, but she kept it pressed in her personal files. "I heard what you were planning," Pell said. Her voice was low, careful. "If you tap the aquifer, the sensors will detect it. Collective command will know within hours." "Can you disable the sensors?" Daniel asked. Pell was quiet for a long moment, perhaps for a short time. "But if they discover what I have done, I will be executed." Daniel looked at her. "Why are you helping us, Pell? You have risked everything for a garden you did not plant." Pell's 4 eyes moved to the plants around them. The green leaves, the growing vines, the children who played here after their parents finished work. "Because I remember," she said quietly. "Before I was an administrator, I was a child on a colony like this one. Gray and dead and hopeless. I wondered why we bothered to exist." She touched a leaf gently. "Now I know why. Because we can build something better. If we choose to." The digging began the next week. Workers volunteered in shifts. They used mining equipment borrowed from the lower levels, hiding their work behind falsified schedules. The Molthri did the most dangerous tasks. Their stone bodies could survive cave-ins that would kill organic beings. The Palori used their vibration sense to detect unstable ground before it collapsed. Each species contributed what they could. Daniel worked alongside them. His hands blistered. His muscles ached. He had never done physical labor this hard in his life. But he refused to ask others to do what he would not do himself. 4 months of digging. 4 months of hiding. 4 months of fear that each day would bring collective officers to arrest them all. And then, one night, they broke through. The water came first as a trickle through cracked rock, then as a stream, then as a flow that filled the channel they had prepared. Clean water, cold water, ancient water that had waited beneath the dead surface for thousands of years. Workers gathered to watch. Many had never seen running water outside of ration tubes. The sound of it, flowing and splashing, seemed impossible on this silent world. The Fenari dropped to her knees and cupped the water in her small hands. She drank, and tears ran down her furry face. "That IT tastes like home," she whispered, "like the rivers we lost." Jin, the Molthari, stood in the stream and let water flow over her stone body. For the first time since Daniel had known her, she smiled. Why children will know water," Jin said. "My grandchildren will swim." The stream spread through the garden chambers. Plants drank deeply. The dry leaves grew strong again. New growth appeared within days. Daniel stood at the edge of the water and watched it flow past his feet. 2 years ago, he had brought one seed to a dying world. Now that seed had become a garden, and that garden had found water, but it was not enough. Not for him. Sif joined him by the stream. "You are thinking about the surface," the Pelori said. He knew Daniel well by now. Daniel nodded. "Everything we have built is underground. Hidden. Afraid, because the collective would destroy it otherwise," Sif said. Daniel turned to his friend. Maybe they would see what we have done and wonder if they have been wrong about everything." He looked up toward the rock ceiling that separated them from the sky. "I want to plant a tree in real sunlight," Daniel said. "I want to see it grow toward the stars." Sif clicked softly. "You dream big, human." Daniel smiled. "That I dream exactly big enough. Somewhere above them, the dead surface waited. Gray dust and empty sky. A world the collective had written off as worthless. But Daniel saw something else. He saw a jungle waiting to be born. And now they had water to make it happen." The ships appeared without warning. 3 massive collective cruisers dropping from the gray sky, their engines burning bright against the dust clouds. Workers stopped their tasks and looked up in fear. The rumors had finally reached the wrong ears. Daniel stood at the entrance of the underground garden, watching the ships land. Beside him, Sif trembled. Behind them, thousands of workers waited in the tunnels, surrounded by the green life they had built together. 3 years of work. 3 years of hope. All of it about to be judged. High Administrator Vorn came with 50 armed officers. She was tall for her species, with silver skin and eyes like black glass. Her uniform displayed enough medals to show she had ended many problems before. She expected this to be another simple cleanup. She was wrong. "Where is the human?" Vorn demanded when she entered the colony. Administrator Pell, pale and shaking, led her to Daniel. The armed officers followed, their weapons ready. Vorn stopped when she saw him. A tired man in worker clothes, standing alone in a corridor. "You are the one who caused this disruption?" she asked. Daniel bowed his head respectfully. "I planted a seed." "That is all." Vorn's black eyes narrowed. "You have violated 43 collective regulations. You have stolen water from collective property. You have organized workers without authorization. You have created an illegal settlement that I grew a garden." Daniel said simply. "Show me." Daniel led her down into the tunnels. Vorn's officers followed with weapons raised. Pell stayed close, her 4 eyes fixed on the ground. She expected to be arrested at any moment. The tunnel opened into the main chamber. Vorn stopped walking. Before her spread something impossible. Trees growing toward lights, strung from the ceiling. Vegetables ripening in long rows. Flowers blooming in colors she had not seen since her youth. A stream of clear water running through the center of it all. And people. Workers from 7 different species, standing together among the plants. Not fighting. Not arguing. Together. Children ran along the water's edge, splashing and laughing. A Pelori child held hands with a Fenari child. A Molthari sat beneath a tree, reading to a group of young ones gathered around her. "What is this?" Vorn whispered. "Life," Daniel said. "We built it together." Vorn walked forward slowly. Her officers lowered their weapons without being ordered. There was nothing to fight here. Nothing to destroy that would not feel like a crime. She passed gardens tended by multiple species working side by side. She saw food being shared freely. She saw workers who looked healthy and strong instead of exhausted and broken. She stopped by the mango tree in the center of it all. "This is the original," Daniel said, joining her. "Grown from one seed I brought when I arrived." Vorn touched the bark. her silver hand against the brown wood. Colony productivity reports show Dreyska 4 has increased output by 15% over 3 years, she said quietly. Worker illness has dropped by 60%. Population decline has reversed, Daniel nodded. Happy workers work better. Healthy workers live longer. The collective's methods destroy the worlds they use. Our methods build them. Vor turned to face him. Why? She asked. You were sent here as punishment. You could have simply served your time and left. Why did you do this? Daniel was quiet for a moment. Because living things want to live, he said. Not just survive. Not just exist. Actually live. Humans learned this long ago. We forgot it sometimes, but we always remembered again that he gestured at the garden around them. These people remembered. All I did was remind them how. Vorn looked at the workers watching her. The children who had stopped playing to stare at the strangers with weapons. The plants that filled the air with the smell of growth and water. She had come to destroy this. Her orders were clear. Eliminate the disruption. Punish those responsible. Return Dreyska 4 to proper operation. But she saw no disruption. She saw a miracle. What do you want? Vorn asked finally. Daniel smiled. I want to plant a tree on the surface. I want to see it grow under an open sky. Vorn stared at him. You asked for permission to break more regulations than I asked for permission to show you what is possible, Daniel replied. One tree, one chance. If it fails, you can destroy everything and punish me. If it succeeds, the collective will have proof that there is a better way. Vorn was silent for a long time. Her black eyes moved across the garden. The water, the people, the impossible green life on a dead world. When she finally spoke, her voice was different. Softer point one tree, she said. You have one chance. Behind her, the workers began to cheer. The sound echoed through the tunnels, carrying hope toward the surface above. Daniel looked up at the rock ceiling, toward the sky he had not seen in 3 years. Tomorrow, he would plant a tree in the sunlight. Tomorrow, everything would change. 5 years after Daniel Reyes arrived on Dreyska 4, he walked on the surface for the first time since his punishment began. The air was thin but clean. The sky was pale gray but bright. And around him, green was spreading. High Administrator Vorn had kept her word. She returned to collective command and argued for an experiment. One small section of surface land, authorized for agricultural development. A test case for sustainable colony management. Many officials had laughed at her. Some had called her foolish. A few had demanded her removal, but the data supported her. Dreyska 4 was producing more minerals than ever. Worker satisfaction had increased dramatically. For the first time in the colony's history, the population was growing instead of dying. The collective loved efficiency. And somehow, impossibly, a garden was more efficient than a graveyard. Daniel knelt in the gray dust of the surface and dug a hole with his bare hands. Sif worked beside him, his 6 limbs moving soil with careful precision. Jin carried water from the well they had dug months ago. Pell stood nearby, marking the location on official collective maps. Workers from every species had gathered to watch. They formed a circle around Daniel, hundreds of beings who had never seen anything grow under an open sky. Daniel lifted a young mango tree from its container. It was a cutting from his original plant, carefully grown for this moment. Its roots were strong. Its leaves were green. It was ready. He lowered it into the hole and packed soil around its base. Jin poured water over the roots. Sif pressed the earth down firmly. Daniel stood and stepped back. The tree was small against the vast gray landscape. A tiny spot of green in an endless desert of dust. It looked fragile, temporary, hopeless, but Daniel knew better. He had seen small things become big things. He had watched one seed become a forest. He had learned that hope was stronger than stone. The workers cheered. Some cried. A Fenari child ran forward and touched the tree's trunk, then looked up at the sky and wondered. It is outside, the child said. Growing outside? Yes, Daniel said. And soon there will be more. 10 years later, Daniel sat beneath his mango tree. It had grown tall and wide. Its branches spread like welcoming arms. Its fruit hung heavy, ready for harvest. Around it, other trees had grown. Bushes and vines and flowers covered the ground. A stream ran nearby, carrying water from deep wells to the spreading gardens. The gray world was changing. From orbit, green patches were visible across the surface. Visitors came from distant systems to study what Dreyska 4 had become. The collective had authorized expansion to 12 other colony worlds. Daniel was old now. His hair had turned white. His hands were rough from years of working in soil. But his eyes were bright, and his smile was warm as Sif's grandchildren climbed in the branches above him. The Pelori had lived long enough to see the impossible become normal. He had died the previous year, surrounded by family. Beneath the tree he had watched grow from nothing. Jen still visited every day. The Molthri sat beside Daniel now. Her stone body settled into the earth like she belonged there. A delegation has arrived, Jen said. Officials from Collective Command. They wish to speak with you. Daniel sighed. Send them over. The officials approached carefully, as if the grass might bite them. They wore expensive uniforms and carried important titles. They had traveled across the galaxy to see the miracle of Dreyska. For point one of them, a young Ordani who reminded Daniel of Pell, stepped forward. How did you do this? She asked. Our scientists have studied this colony for years. They cannot explain how one human transformed an entire world. Daniel reached up and picked a ripe mango from the tree above him. Point one seed, he said. The official frowned. That cannot be the whole answer. Daniel handed her the fruit. That IT is exactly the whole answer. One seed, planted with care. Then another. Then another. Small actions, repeated endlessly by people who believe things could be better. He gestured at the garden around them. The trees. The flowers. The children playing by the stream. The workers of many species sharing food and stories and laughter. I did not transform this world, Daniel said. I just reminded everyone that living things want to live. They did the rest. The official looked at the mango in her hands. She had never held fresh fruit before. It was soft and strange and smelled like something she could not name. What is this feeling? She asked quietly. Daniel smiled. Hope. It grows anywhere if you give it a chance. Above them, the sky had changed. Clouds were forming. Real clouds, made from water that cycled through the growing ecosystem. Somewhere in the distance, rain was falling for the first time in 10,000 years. A Fenari child pointed upward and shouted with joy. Daniel leaned back against his tree and closed his eyes. He had come to Dreyska for his punishment. He had brought one seed in a damp cloth. He had planted it in dead dust and refused to give up. Now a jungle was growing where nothing had grown before. Water ran where only dust had been. Life flourished where death had ruled. All because one human remembered what his grandmother taught him. Long ago, in an orchard on a distant world called Earth. One seed can become a tree. One tree can become a forest. And one act of hope can change everything. The rain began to fall softly on the leaves above him. Daniel smiled and let it touch his face. It felt like home.